All right, for our second part of today's discussion, there have been reports circulating and just activity that we've observed where since the 2024 election, people have been leaving Twitter and Twitter/X, and it's interesting because a lot of times people will announce that they're leaving Twitter/X, which I guess that's for the benefit of their followers, or whatever, because as we'll get into later, people want to take their followers with them, or like keep the following that they had or maintain a level of following, but take it to a different platform. And so we've seen like Blue Sky, there's been a lot of reports as far as that's growing. Some people have been jumping to Threads or both, going to these different places. And it's almost like a reshuffling, or at least to some degree, Twitter/X is still very large, but a reshuffling of where many of the more engaged users of the text-based social media are doing it. So what are your thoughts, Tunde, on this recent exodus from Twitter, whether it be the reasons people are given from getting out or just that we've reached a tipping point maybe, and people are not wanting to necessarily plug into a platform that operates in the way that Twitter/X does, or just generally, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting. This is a true story of the free market, right? That somebody created, another platform. It's been around for, I think, about 2 years. It wasn't popular. But when the shift in X happened in terms of, most people watching this probably are aware of the shift after Elon Musk bought X, that he's just opened up the floodgates to what he considers freedom of speech. And it's basically become a platform for antisocial behavior in general. And so there's a lot of people that don't want to be in a platform like that, just like there's a lot of advertisers that don't want to advertise in a platform like that. And so it makes sense to me that with another option, we see millions of people moving to this new platform. My concern is Elon Musk, to me, has displayed that he is really not a free market person. And he likes to control everything and not a free speech. Yeah. So I know the show isn't about that, but my concern would be that if he continues to have such proximity in a new administration, that, Blue Sky might be in a conversation similar to what TikTok was just a year ago, that they might try and ban it for some reason. So to me, it's an example of the free market working and being allowed to work. And so, in my opinion, I hope it continues, because why not have another platform that's diverse? And I don't mean diverse in like race and stuff. I just mean diverse in thought, and that allows
another option. No, let me jump on that, because I think the free market piece is, this is why you want to market. This is why you don't want monopolies, or just one option, because when that one option begins to change the way it operates and it's not just who it is posted and who's posted or posts, the types of posts that are now allowed to circulate or that are even boosted up. It's also the way that the algorithm's been changed. Like, everybody has to see Elon Musk tweets, and there's certain like they've studied in terms of whether the political leanings, like certain types of posts will get priority over others, notwithstanding any payment, but just, like, he's changed the thing to be kind of his personal toy, and so if you don't have an option in a marketplace, then that gives him, the kind of power that Americans, at least from the way that Americans have operated historically, frown upon. We like markets. We like competition. And so that you have that you can have potential competitors that create a reasonable facsimile of this. And so you can choose to take your business to either where you like the service best, or if you want to avoid, supporting financially someone like Musk or whatever, it's good to have that option. But it's interesting. You already jumped to kind of the last part, like maybe the third topic of this, of this subject, talking about, like maybe we're going to see some abuse of power come here to force everybody to be on it later on.
Well, let me just jump in on that. The reason I say that, James, is because, I don't want to pick on Elon Musk, but I'll just say it just to get my thought out, is he appears to be someone that okay. Yeah, he can, I'm sure. But I actually, I don't know. He looks pretty sensitive. But anyway, it's just that the idea that he seems to be the type of business person that doesn't like competition. that now that he's kind of made it across a certain bridge financially and business wise, he appears to be the guy that pulls up that bridge. And it's seen with, a lot of this talk we hear about tariffs is because he's in the future president's ear, because he doesn't want EV competition, not only from China, but he also wants to hurt the ability for American car makers like GM and Ford to also pursue it. That's why he wants to get rid of the $7,500 tax credit, because there's enough Teslas already, he's got a market share that he doesn't want to lose. So my point is to your point, as an American and American culturally, not a South African that came here, my attitude was always free markets and competition and anti-monopolistic. And so that's just my concern. As I want to speak on that is that Blue Sky is an example of the free market, but my concern is that we have kind of oligarch forces now that are going to be taking control that don't seem to like competition. They want to hoard everybody for themselves.
Well, that's kind of the one of the features of the oligarchy is that to control everything for themselves. One of the interesting discussions here that I noted, and we'll have some stuff in the show notes as far as just where we were reading about this stuff, but the amount of discussion that's gone on as far as people not wanting to lose or leave their following that they've built up on Twitter over so long. And what that reminded me of was kind of the techno-feudalism. We did the book Techno-Feudalism a while back, and it talked about how the power imbalance that happens with these platforms, it almost becomes a feudal type of situation where the owner of the platform is the feudal lord, and the people who are creating on the platform become very dependent on the feudal lord, but they don't have any kind of ownership interest there. They're dependent on it. And if, they're dependent on the feudal lord to continue to do what they want to do, so to speak. And they're doing all this stuff that benefits the feudal lord without being paid by the feudal lord. They may be able to monetize it in other ways from other people, but not from the place that hosts what they have. And so this dilemma that you're seeing people have where they're like, oh, I'd love to leave X, but I can't replicate my following over there, and so forth. And so this dependency that, that X will have, or that people will have on X, is very interesting to me because, again, it's a one-way thing, more or less. Yeah. Like, they give you a platform, a place to speak from, and then you can try to monetize that elsewhere. But the hesitancy to say, hey, I can't jump because that will mess up my ability to do everything else I do. Whereas, again, that person, they're not paying. Twitter X is not paying you. So it's really it reveals this kind of dependency in the relationship, which also just briefly, I'll throw these both towards you. It's interesting to me because the discussion of we'll leave Twitter and we'll go to Threads. It's just that was an interesting kind of move anyway, because it's like, okay, well, I don't want to be dependent on the whims of one person, Elon Musk, as far as, my Twitter. So when Elon Musk decides, okay, yeah, I want to boost right-wing content, or I want to do this and that and stuff, I don't want to be dependent on that. Or I want to bring a bunch of people in that do a bunch of slurs and make things crazy. Like, you have no control over that. But, I mean, I'm not saying that Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg are the same, but you still, if you go to Threads, you're still dependent on the whims of one person, as far as how the platform is going to operate.
Feudalism is a great, way to put it.
You're just still have a landlord, feudal lord. Yeah, you're just going to a different feudal lord, and so, but you're still dependent on it without any kind of checks, without any kind of balances in terms of that. Now, there's still the competition, but you then might be walking into the same situation of, okay, I'm going to go build up my following over here, and then Zuckerberg's going to wake up one day and decide to make some change that is devastating for you, and then you're like, oh no, I can't leave here either. So it seems a little bit short-sighted,
but fascinating. Because as you're describing, I'm thinking, feudalism is not uncommon in the human experience and human history. I mean, the best record, I guess, well known is that just the whole European feudalism model from the Dark Ages, the Middle Ages.
China as well. China has a long history.
In America, I mean, think about sharecropping in the southern United States in the first half of the 20th century was feudalism. I mean, people lived on the land and they didn't have a choice, and they had a landlord and and all that stuff. And so this is how humans have organized. So I guess we shouldn't be surprised that once the new technology, which is almost like a new world, the kind of metaverse in a sense.
It's a new land. It's a new land, basically.
Yeah, like new land. That
this land is being set up in a feudal type of way. Yeah.
And that, yeah, that it wasn't set up in a democratic way. It was set up the way that real land was set up, established over human history, which is the guys with the biggest guns and the most money, take that land and control it. And then everyone else kind of got to listen to them. So maybe part of our human experience over the next generations will be how to democratize, maybe more that the internet and all this stuff. But for now, it appears that exactly what you're saying, that the system is feudal. Maybe Blue Sky will be able to allow a different type of environment because of the way that they allow the user to also be a participant in how the algorithms are set. So that's something kind of new. But, I wanted to share this because as you were talking, it reminded me when you said about people announcing that they're leaving X because they want their followers to follow them. Mm-hmm. That reminded me, I've shared on the show, but you know this well, that I got off Facebook in 2019. The December 5th, I remember.
You had your tipping point. Yeah.
Yep. I had my 5 years point. Ago. Yeah. But you know what was interesting? Because when you said it reminded me, that's what I want to share with the audience. I wasn't monetizing my presence on Facebook. I was just there personally with, looking at friends and family and who were my contacts and all that. But part of this psychological attraction and kind of, the way that they get you hooked is I was scared to leave. It took me a while to leave it because I kept thinking like, oh, I don't want to miss out on seeing this or that person, or I don't want to miss out on, seeing a person from high school 30 years ago that I haven't talked to once in the last 20 years. So it took me some time to really have to work on myself and say, you know what? Because I had to do things like remind myself, what did humans do before 10 years ago? You know what I mean? Like, like our parents' generations or grandparents, you know what? Yeah. If you really cared about somebody and you were friends with them, you stayed in touch. Yeah. And if you didn't, you didn't. And that was life. And so I had, and so as you said that, it reminded me of how, I don't want to say that they do this on purpose, these platforms, but our human desire to be connected, yes. Be in a community. It is scary when we feel we're going to be cut from that. And yes. When you said what you said, yeah, they want their followers to follow them. Part of that is the feudalism of the landlord, whether it's Twitter or Facebook or whoever, controls all their resources and their income. Yes. So for them, it's like
it controls their connectivity.
Yeah,
and
well, it's almost like if in the old landlord days of feudalism, if a guy could actually leave his feudal lord by picking up his whole plot of land, you know what I mean? Like, and then his family and said, hey guys, okay, we're going to sneak off tonight. So I can have you guys over here with me. We can get away from this guy and we'll still be able to farm and eat and all that. Now I want to, for people not like I was, but people that monetize this stuff, if they leave Twitter to go to Blue Sky, that could be the end of their financial well-being too. So you're right. They need to kind of create this whole environment.
The social connections. Yeah, there's the monetizing piece, and then there's the social connections. Like, in one of the pieces we'll have in there from NBC News, one of the guys who made the switch was like, and looking at it, Blue Sky has enough of the academics that I deal with and the trade professionals that I deal with that I can still roll with it. Like, it's good enough for me. So he was weighing, does it have enough of the social connectivity for me to be able to move, or do I need to stay over here because it's the connections that I'm looking for? This is the only place I can get them. So, I mean, looking at it in that way, it's just like, again, it's they get your connections, like that you make your connections through them. They're your intermediary, and then kind of you are beholden to them to maintain those connections. And so, how can you then, if you want to go somewhere else, how can you then maintain, whether it be connections for monetary purposes, monetizing it, or just connections because this is what you like to do, and you want to be able to exchange ideas and so forth and thoughts. And so it brought me right to techno-feudalism when I read this, and like, oh man, like, the struggle of of deciding, oh man, it's a heavy decision for people.
Yeah. No, and that's why I wanted to share that, because as you're talking, I haven't thought about it in a while, but I was like, yeah, man, this reminds me of when I left Facebook. Like, it wasn't that easy. Yeah. And I wasn't, again, I wasn't.
You weren't half as in deep as like a lot of the people that we're looking at right now.
I know we want to finish out, but I just want to say that because it makes me realize we've talked about this, and I know it's something that people have heard in our culture generally, that this epidemic of loneliness. And this conversation actually gave me a new perspective on that, because number one, it's the fact that millions, so many tens of millions of people, maybe hundreds of millions globally, are so dependent on the feudal lord, the techno-feudal lord, for their entry into relationships and a community is actually something that can be manipulated in a very negative way. Because I was thinking, think about, again, to pick on Elon Musk here, just because he's been the one that's been very public about deplatforming certain people that like you said, he's not really about freedom of speech. He's about control. So, but think about, imagine like people that really, they don't maybe have that many real connections, at least in person, people in proximity with them. And so they're really using these platforms. Imagine if somebody just said, oh, I just don't like the type of person you are or what I've seen you post, and I'm just going to take you off this platform. Again, there's no rights for the consumer on that, right? You're not going to go to court and say, well, he kicked me off and I had like 25 really close friends and I'm now depressed and this and that. So I need to let, the government's not going to be like an advocate like Elon Musk. You got to let, this person back on because, they're having a mental breakdown now. And so I just think that, and I'm not saying the government should do that. I'm just making the point that these are the little offshoots that we don't see until they appear in our society because these technologies are so new. Because who would have ever thought that human beings would congregate in communities behind a screen and that would be emotionally almost just exactly as satisfying as real interaction? So, we got to figure
the
this
last
out.
thing I wanted to, I mentioned the term a couple times, but I wanted to touch on just briefly is the idea of this being like the 2024 election and the aftermath being a tipping point for people. Because the first thing I thought when I noticed this was, or when I saw this phenomenon happening, was just that the way Twitter was operating did not change in the beginning of November. Like all of the things that people were complaining about or why they need to get out, for the most part, have been in place for months, or a year or so. Like the way Musk has operated the platform has not been something that, like I said, it wasn't some big switch. November 5th, 2024. Here's how we're going to do it now. And so, it's interesting to me how events external of Twitter, which based on the timing of this, you got to think that this has something to do with how the election went. Yeah. But based on the timing of it, that events external to social media, like real world events, then caused people to make moves in the Twitter sphere or out of the Twitter sphere, so to speak. And, again, without anything actually changing there, so I think that that's kind of how tipping points can work, though. Tipping points, like the impetus can be there and then something else can happen. And then it starts the ball rolling for something, like that, again, it's not directly related to anything that Musk did in November on Twitter, so to speak. Yeah. So I think
you're right. It's emotional. Yeah. And here's the interesting thing too, James. I'm going to assume that had Kamala Harris won, I'm not going to say everybody, but a majority of the people who've left Twitter to go to Blue Sky may not have left Twitter. They might have just stayed.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. But all the reasons why they're saying they're leaving now, I'm not questioning anybody's reasons.
Exactly.
I'm just saying those are all still present. All of those reasons are still there. And so, I've looked at Twitter skeptically for a long time, at this point, for this reason, because it's if this guy is out openly manipulative of the algorithm, openly, trying to unfairly boost some things and unfairly minimize other things, that doesn't sound like a good social media place.
I'm just smiling because I wonder if we're going to get deplatformed from Twitter now that we have this show. maybe I'll send it when the video comes out. I'll send it directly to his account.
Hey man, it doesn't seem like they're in the business of kicking people out right now. It seems like they're trying to hold on to people, but I don't know, maybe not. But no, I think we can wrap this conversation from there. Yeah. We appreciate everybody joining us on this second part of the episode today. Join us for part 3, and then if you haven't checked out, check out part 1 as well. And we'll talk to you then.